We have a 2-year training program here at Fort Covington International. It starts from the day a new franchisee signs a franchise agreement, and they have a handoff call with myself and with my learning and development director and with one of my operations coaches. And from that day forward, for basically the next 2 years, we usher them through the startup program, and through those first 2 years, most critical 2 years of their business startup. And it starts with an 8-week pre-opening program, which is very extensive, where they go through all kinds of webinar-based training, knowledge-based training, sales-based training to get them ready to open. And that concludes with them coming to Atlanta for a live training session. During that live training session, they actually go out and run live appointments. They go to an Airbnb, so they're in a real home as well, where they're doing role play in an actual home setting, so they're getting the feel of what it's like to actually estimate and perform in a home. And then they're jumping in a mobile showroom with one of the coaches, and they're actually going to a real home in a live appointment, and they're landing work here in Atlanta. We had somebody just land a job yesterday for $10,000 for one of our local franchise owners. And so they're getting that experience here right before they go back and put it into action in their own market the next day. And then from that point forward, they're in what we call the startup mode for the next 90 days. Okay, during that startup mode, they're having ongoing training. We call that field training. They're jumping on a call every week now with their whole class and with their learning and development director and with their operations coach. And we're helping them through all the critical things they're going through and learning as they're experiencing new customers, right? And the whole goal during that startup phase is to land 18 jobs and to produce at least 12 jobs. That way they're getting that holistic customer experience from start to finish. They're learning how to deal with the customers, they're learning how to manage installations and installers and all of those good things. And then they're coming back here 90 days for our second training session, which is another live event, where we're doing additional skill-based training with them. They're jumping back in the mobile showroom with us again at that point. We're running more live appointments, and we're assessing now how much did they move the needle on their selling skills from the time they left initial TSA to the time they come back to TSA. So now we're furthering those skills, and we're also now feeding them more information to help them to become even better at delivering a great experience for their customers. The next thing we're doing at that point is we're also starting to really dig into their financials, because it's really important to us at Fort Covington International that our franchisees understand their numbers, right? The nuts and bolts of the business are about the financials. We want them to have a high top line, but we understand that a healthy business is all about the bottom line. And if they're not making money, it's not good for any of us. So I focus on that from the very beginning. So when they come back at 90 days, we're looking at a detailed P&L for the whole class, side by side, and they're starting to analyze their numbers. And they're starting to really understand what drives their business. And we're looking at just a couple key metrics, couple levers that they understand are the things that are going to drive the performance of the business. And now they're going into what we call the next phase, which is stability phase of the business. During the stability phase, which is from 90 days to 270 days, they're proving to themselves that they're ready to jump into scalability, which is the third phase. Stability is all about proving to themselves they can consistently close jobs in the home, which means they've learned how to sell, because that's the critical skill they got to teach their next person, their next salesperson. And they're learning how to make sure they can produce jobs at a healthy gross margin, so they can sell them and produce them at the right margin, which means they've learned how to properly estimate in the home. And they've also figured out their marketing. Do they have enough marketing coming in to support not only themselves, but also to support adding this person to their sales team? So now they've reached that third phase, which is that scaling their business. And now they reach their next big learning curve, which is now they got to figure out how to coach and lead somebody else in their business, right? So that tends to be the bigger learning curve for most of our owners, which is surprising to them. It's like they think it's going to get a little bit easier at that point. I'm like, no, it gets a little harder, because now you got to start teaching somebody else while your sales continue to grow, your production grows, and now you're managing your own sales, you're coaching and leading somebody else in another mobile showroom, and your whole business continues to scale. And that phase is from basically 270 days to 2 years. And that's that kind of that holistic training program. And then the last piece of that we teach them is a peer program that we actually require them to go through. And the reason for that is because we found the value of the peer interaction is so powerful that they get to a point at roughly 9 months to a year where they kind of get, I don't want to say they get tired of listening to their operations coach, right? But they'd rather hear it from somebody else in the trenches with them, right? So if you're another franchisee and you're out there doing the same thing they are, they're going to take more stock in what you have to say about feedback on something that's going on in their business than they are from me as their ops coach. Even though I have credibility because I'm working with other owners, it's just different, right? So we put them in a group, what we call a peer advisory council, a PAC group. And that PAC group then gets together now on a monthly basis, and they're looking at each other's financials, they're bringing questions to each other and challenges to each other, and they're helping each other to solve key business issues and holding each other accountable. The biggest thing that group does is creates accountability. It's like having a board of directors for your business, right? And not surprisingly, PAC groups perform at a very high level. So the people that are in these peer groups perform at a higher level than other people that are not part of peer groups.